Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started. Thank you for joining us. We're all here. Is there any oral communications?
None.
Okay, great. And we'll move to approval of minutes.
A motion to approve.
Second.
But voting's open. Okay, it's still open.
Okay. Perfect. We'll move to item number 2, update on the temporary relocation of the Escondido City Library.
Trustees, my name is Francisco Vargas, Management Analyst in the Economic Development Department, where I oversee the city's real property portfolio. I was before you a month ago, requesting your recommendation for a temporary site, and today I'm back with an update on that. In my presentation, I will provide an update on the temporary relocations effort currently underway, provide some layouts of these storefronts that the city has interest in, timeline and future items that will come before the city council. And at the end, I just request that the library board of trustees receive and file this presentation to update the board of trustees on the temporary relocation of the Escondido City Library. The last time we met on February 13th, the Board of Trustees approved staff's recommendation to temporarily relocate the Escondido Student Library to the North County Mall. On the following day, city staff learned that there had been miscommunication regarding the status of the current tenant at the Forever 21 storefront. And as such, we pivoted. And the pivot now includes the storefronts on the first floor near Target, the ones you're seeing highlighted in red. There's a storefront for the Friends of the Library, another storefront for the Children's Collection, another storefront for the General Collection, and 2 spaces for staff and storage. Currently, city staff is negotiating with mall management to finalize the rental agreement for the necessary space. Once that agreement is finalized, we will present that agreement to the city council for approval. There are currently 5 spaces. Starting up at the top right is the space for staff and storage. Coming down right here next to Target, space for the Friends of the Library. This space right here is for a sorting room and for storage as well for staff. The space next to it is the Children's Collection, and the space next to that is the General Collection. And these are the diagrams that Reno presented to city staff as a general layout for how they are going to be inside. The one over here on the right-hand corner, the most right-hand corner is the Friends of the Library, which is on that corner. The one in the middle is for the Children's Collection, and the one on the left is for the General Collection.
Those arrows, are these rooms connected?
These rooms are not connected. You would have to go, if you're in the General Collection and you want to go into the Children's Collection, you would have to exit one and enter the other one. And between the Children's Collection and the Friends of the Library, there are 2 empty storefronts that the city is also looking to lease. And we're going to ask their
so I understand the space, because I'm not familiar with that section of the mall, what is in between the proposed Friends bookstore and the storage by the children's library? Is there another store in between there, or is that
That's vacant.
vacant?
Yeah, we can. So we're going to utilize that storefront, and we're going to put marketing material.
Thank you.
Going back. Since drafting the attachment to your staff report, there have been changes in direction. City staff has determined that in an effort to control costs and allocate resources more efficiently, initially we were considering an additional storefront for a temporary computer lab. As such, we will not be able to move forward with a location just for a computer lab, but we will integrate the computer lab into the general collection space. And we will be able to provide the public with computers within that area inside the general collection space. The timeline for now is this one right here. On April 9th, the staff will request a budget adjustment and lease approval from the City Council. On April 26th would be the last day of operations at the main library site. On April 28th, the first day of the move begins. And on May 27th, the temporary library at the North County Mall opens. For future items, the cost of the temporary relocation of the library services are still being calculated. On April 9th, city staff will request to the City Council the necessary budget adjustments. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Thanks for this update. I haven't had a chance to read the staff report that's in the packet yet. So we're pushing everything out about 2 weeks from the start of the relocation to the completion of the relocation. Right? From where we were before. Because the last meeting, we were going to start on the 14th of April and finish on the 14th of May, and now we're doing the same thing in a month in. So roughly a 2-week delay on when the move occurs.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, the integration of the computer lab in the main library section, I don't see where that's going to be an issue. The one thing that I'm a broken record on this, but I still, having moved warehouses full of thousands of line items, this does not have to take a month. And I hope you guys will do the best you can to finish it less than a month instead of having the end of May as your target date.
We are working to move quicker than that, and that is how we're moving.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, we're taking the library services away from our patrons for an entire 30 days, and if we could cut that down to 20, or anything in that realm, that would be useful to them. This is not about, well, it is about us because we've got to make sure that this gets done and gets done right. But I would certainly recommend and hope that you guys will try to get this done quicker. That's all.
So I recognize that some of the financials are still being worked out. Do you have any ballpark estimate of the cost? Because initially when we had voted for the North County Mall, at least on my end, it was understanding that square footage would be a lot larger, right? So it was going to be 50,000 square footage, where now we're under 15,000. And so that's a significant reduction. So I would assume or hope that that also means a reduction in the cost. be able to give us a ballpark estimate?
At the moment, I don't have a ballpark estimate. But that is something we can come back with.
Maribel, did you say we're going from what was proposed to us last for being 50,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet?
Yes, and that's based off of page 9, and I know we're not including the computer lab, so I imagine maybe one of the stores is gonna add a little bit more, but they don't seem to be terribly big. But just based off of the square footage of, the Friends of the Library, Children's General Collection, storage space, circulation, and what was quoted as the computer lab, that's just under 15,000 square.
So that's a significant difference than what was presented to us in January when we decided to move forward.
Right, but it still represents a 50% increase over what I think what was prior to that meeting, what was our primary choice, which was CCA. They were just under 10,000.
Okay, so I understand that the original space was probably too large, but everything that was presented in the January board meeting for the services provided, was there anything cut out of that? Or will we have enough space to go as planned?
I'll answer that one.
Okay.
As of right now, the plans presented both to you and the city from us, we recognize that we are not going to be able to fit as much in 15,000 square feet as we could have in the 50,000 square foot space that was Forever 21. However, with some very creative use of the spaces, we can at least guarantee that all the collections that we currently have will be available at this new location. They won't be all available on the floor, but roughly in the general collections, around 30% will be accessible and the rest of it will be on that same site storage and what we call reserved collections. And those would be like the less popular. So we would organize the most popular in on the floor for browsing, and then the rest would have to be requested and pulled by staff, either in that moment, kind of similar to curbside pickup, or as a hold for pickup whenever they're ready. So the collections will all be accessible. In the children's library, we were able to include all the children's materials in the space without having to have like a holds type system. And in the children's space, we were able to include an area for mini story times or small programs, as well as seating and tables for families and children. What we had to sacrifice was in the general collection was primarily people space. There is very much reduced seating, and we made sure to have room for the computer lab. Again, reduced, we're going from around 20 computers for the public down to 4. But it does at least enable us to offer the service, which could be for printing and browsing. And we're also leveraging the fact that there is Wi-Fi already in the mall, and also that there's a lot of seating right outside in the mall in front of the storefronts we've selected. So there is a balancing act in that the general collection will be much more of a browsing, kind of a bookstore type situation, but we're compensating with the fact that all the collections are there, and that we do have some seating options provided by the mall right outside. So we're doing our best to balance that out, but the reality is that we won't be able to replicate everything exactly. For example, programming space, we're in talks with the mall, for example, to be able to use their event space that's nearby for some of our programs when it makes sense. They were very excited to hear that we were interested in probably doing some story times on vacation out there. And then for programs that make more sense to have them in an enclosed but larger space, we would have to pull them up here at the Mountain Center. Either the classroom in the Mountain Center or the dance studio in the Mountain Center. I'll also mention that concerns for that 1 month when we're in that transition, we are dedicating some staff to be able to have limited hours in the Pioneer Room for picking up holds. And then we're also going to continue our story times after that first week. So starting the second week of May, story times will be held in the Mathis Center. So that would continue to at least offer our most popular programs, which are really the story times, and also offer patrons the opportunity to pick up items that are requested before that closure date for the public.
For the items that are going to be in storage at the temporary location that people can order, the ones that are not in the 80% parade.
Yeah.
What's your turn time for that?
I would expect it to be either in the moment, so if somebody really wants an item, we can go pull it. Or, like with the rest of our holds, it's literally right across the hall. So we would handle them like we do with our regular holds, which is every day. We do multiple runs of holds pickups. And then they get contacted usually by the next day so they can pick up their hold. So I don't see any changes there.
Okay, thank you.
Just real quick, I'm looking to connect some dots. I have this staff report in front of me under fiscal analysis. It says, at a later time, city staff will return to city council for budget adjustment. Is that the April 9th date we're seeing on the timeline? And what is meant by return to city council? Has city council already been made aware of all these plans?
That was typo. That is why on here, but at a later time, city staff will request to the city council the necessary budget adjustment.
Thank you for clarifying that.
For the purposes of the programming in the mall's event center, is that going to come at an additional cost? Or is that something that the mall is looking like compromising on for us?
I'll be honest, we've only had preliminary talks with mall management, but my understanding based on those is that, one, they provide programs for free every Sunday. I think they call it their Sunday Fun Day for the kids. So what we would be doing is working with them to basically provide free programs by our staff for the mall, and there wouldn't be a charge necessarily for us to use their space, because it's acting as a marketing tool for them and a draw for the mall. So really they should be paying us, not the other way around. But again, we're still very much in early talks, but I don't anticipate there being an added cost.
Okay. Has there been any further conversations regarding the drop boxes, or when the mall and or library are closed?
Not as that I'm aware of, but I know that the mall is very open to us installing the drop boxes and locations that were mutually agreed upon. But I would refer to those types of talks once we get to them, but I think nothing has been done so far, correct?
Yeah, correct. And, we have not received any pushback from the mall. On the contrary, they've been very open to the library being there.
Are there only two restrooms? One in the storeroom and then one in the main library area?
So any restrooms pictured on those plans are essentially for staff only.
Okay.
There's not any publicly accessible restrooms in either the general, the children's, or the Friends store. Patrons would have to use the mall restrooms, and there's a number of them nearby, and there's also some inside of the Target that's also nearby.
Okay.
One other question. So you can actually access this space from the other side of the mall coming back in, and if you walk in that entrance, the staff area will be on the left, and what used to be California Pizza Kitchen is on the right. Okay, or you can come through the Target on the other side.
The public? Yeah, there's two ways of entering.
Right. So are we going to get, I'm assuming you're going to get the word out on, especially the backside location, that would be pretty easy to get in and out of, I would think.
As far as entering for the public, there's only one entrance, staff do have the option of entering potentially from the back. There is an entryway that leads to like, I think it's like a trash area, I'm not quite sure, loading dock. But for the public, there's only the front entrances.
Okay. Only through Target or the other main entrances?
Right. To enter the mall, they'd have to go through one of the main mall entrances. There's no access to any of the library locations from what we would call like the street.
Must have my exits and entrances mixed up, so thank you.
There's that main mall entrance where California Pizza Kitchen is, like, it was California Pizza Kitchen and the salon. And that's the main mall entrance, that will go right into where the library campus space is from the parking lot.
There are two entrances to the mall. One that's like, as you're mentioning, near what we get the comedy club, and it's
Yeah.
you pass through that area, and then there's another one a little bit off to the side, coming in from the other direction.
Yeah. And was there any update on accommodating our normal library hours if the mall is usually closed during that time?
We have not moved very far on discussion of hours. We are tentatively working on a schedule for staff. We can make it work within the mall's hours, or we can make it supposed to reflect the library's hours. Our recommendation currently is going to be aligning closer to the mall hours, but we haven't discussed that, what that might mean, and what preference the city has. For example, just so you understand, we can make it work, say, the mall opens at 10, so we could do a 10 to 7 or a 10 to 8. 10 to 8 would mean that we fulfill our contractual obligations, provide 60 hours per week. Alternatives to that could be discussed. The mall is open on Sundays. Historically, from what I've been told, when the library had Sunday hours, they are not very well attended. It was also difficult to staff. However, we don't quite know whether that would be different at the mall. The mall's hours on Sundays are also more limited. But I think theirs are like from 10 or 11 until 7 on Sundays, Sunday or 6. So there are a few options there. Welcome to hear what the board of trustees has as far as what you believe your preferences for the community might be. Otherwise, we're flexible.
Okay, thanks. I don't have a strong preference. I'll wait to see what you guys come up with when we have that conversation. Thank you both for those updates. We could move on to item number 3, the library infrastructure grant project.
Okay.
Is it,
Yep.
is it on? Okay.
We got it.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. My name is Rob Rose. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Service, and I'm here to give you an update for our library infrastructure project. I am happy to let you know that the project is currently out to bid. And so part of the reason why what you saw earlier with Francisco's presentation, where everything was adjusted, is because it did not go out to bid when it was intended to go out to bid. We were running about 2 weeks behind. So as of right now, I'm going to give you kind of a quick update on what the schedule actually looks like as far as what your key dates are. And I know you saw some of them, and I do want to address Trustee Schwab's request for starting a little bit, opening a little bit earlier at that location. So again, just kind of give you a quick rundown. April 9th is when the staff are going to council to make a full request for a budget adjustment. And that will include everything that's required for our particular move, which will be the moving services both to our temporary location and back from our temporary location. That will also include all of the IT that will be required in those locations. That will also include any type of building maintenance and construction that will be required. And there will be some of that will be required. As noted on some of the diagrams that you did see, there were, where we were placing the small computer or technology space for public access, that's actually currently a dressing room. So we would actually have to tear that space down and then reestablish it specifically for the public computer space. And then also that would include any type of our communications plan that we're going to be doing. And I'm actually going to be talking about what our communication marketing plan is in just a little bit. So we are going to go to the city council with that full package. That will be everything, including the rent as well, which is currently being negotiated. And so that is on April 9th. April 26th, we are projecting to be the last day of services at the current library location. The very next following Monday, because that 26th is a Saturday, that following Monday, which is on the 28th, that is where library staff are actually going to prepare for the move. So the movers are not coming in that date or that week. So library staff has to take the opportunity to prepare for the move because we are looking at getting movable carts and what are they called? Sorry. Trucks. Yeah, perfect. So the book trucks to be able to appropriately place everything in to allow us the move would be easier. It's easier for staff when in those temporary locations. So they're going to be doing all that first week. That second week that we are closed, that is the week we are anticipating the move. So that's when the movers are coming in to actually move our collection and the furniture and the computers and everything that needs to be done. We're anticipating that to only be a week. Then that following week is when the library staff, once again, gets prepared for being in the new location. Now, the hope is that we are prepared enough that that will only be those 3-week period of time. So when Francisco was talking earlier about opening on May 27th, that's the outside date. So that's the date we're projecting for. However, we're actually hoping for being a week earlier than that, provided that we can get everything done in that period of time. So again, I hope that answers Trustee Schwab's question about trying to squeeze as much of our time in there as possible to get everything accomplished in a much shorter period of time. And then the anticipation is construction will actually start the first week of June. So we'll be in our new location. Construction will be getting started that particular first week. Having had a conversation with our project manager, Ed Vasquez, he does believe that we are going to need to request an extension. That extension request will not come until January, probably of 2026, because by that time, we have a much clearer understanding where we are in the process. Are we at 80% complete with the process, or are we only 50% complete, whatever it might be. However, the longer bid process that we're doing, which we're also doing a walkthrough with all of the anticipated contractors, that will give us a really good idea for them so when we can actually get started. So that's what that time frame kind of looks like at this point. Didn't know if you had any questions before I continue, but I'm going to give you that opportunity.
Thank you, Robert, very much for the update. It's good to hear that we've got a chance in 3 weeks. So I'm looking at this sheet that we got in January. So the bids, by what you said, then the bids didn't get out there until the first week of March.
Around that time.
Okay, so the walkthrough is maybe going to be in early April.
So I believe the walkthrough is supposed to be happening by the end of this month because they have to do the walkthrough to understand what is supposed to be moved, what is supposed to be left, because we also have, this is the other thing that we are needing to work on, is that there is a number of art pieces in the library. There's also a number of items that hang on the wall, the giving tree, those things we need to understand that cannot be touched, and we need to make sure the contractor knows it's going to be their responsibility to appropriately protect those areas.
Yeah,
So that's part of the reason for that walk.
Just like the mural on the west wall.
That's correct.
So we're still looking at starting construction 1st of June, but then there's a lot of things that have to happen between now and then to make that.
That's correct. However, our project manager feels as though this is a pretty solid timeline at this point.
Just to throw a little bit of levity in on this, this morning I got asked, are you guys replacing the carpet in the library on the first floor? And I said, well, we're going to replace the carpet on the first floor and the children's section. And he says, well, I'm the one that put in that carpet. And he says, I'd be surprised if it's showing any wear at all. You should just leave it alone. So, which is pretty much impossible if you're going to renovate the rest of the building.
Right.
Anyway. Yeah, he thought the carpet would last forever, basically, because of the type of nylon that's being used, was used in it. It's no longer available in the carpet industry. So, just thought I'd throw that in. So I thought it was kind of strange.
I can jump in with the question about the bid process. Are you allowed to reveal if there's been interest already, or?
There's been quite a bit of interest already. What Ed told me is that there are quite a number of more contractors that he's seen that have expressed interest in this particular project than he's seen in other projects. And he thinks it's typically because this is a more general type construction project rather than really specific about, like, you know, doing a street project kind of thing.
The extension that you're going to be requesting, that is to the state to have the funds available past the May of 2060?
That's correct.
Have we socialized that yet with the state?
I can't answer that question. That would be the project manager
Okay.
answer that, but I can find that out for you.
Okay, yeah, that would be great, just because obviously we'd want to understand what the timeline looks like for their approval of an extension. I would hate to get to May and then, you know, have them say, oh, we should have known about this 2 months earlier or something, and we have to stop work and all of that.
Absolutely.
So it'd be helpful to understand what their timeline looks like for approval of extension, and then if they're even amenable to extending.
And as I have mentioned previously, is that the expenditure of funds is viewed sometimes a little differently. It doesn't necessarily mean you've actually spent the funds. Sometimes it is you've encumbered those funds in a purchase order.
Okay.
So we will need to define that as well.
Okay, yeah, that would be very helpful.
Let me, I'd like to review now with you. We do have been meeting with our communications team, and I wanted to kind of just review with you the basic communications plan that we have developed. We are doing this in what we're calling a phased approach. The first phase being the fact that the library is on the move, right? The second phase being the library has moved. So, and then the third phase being we are returning to the library, and look at all the amazing stuff that we've been able to do and accomplish in that period of time. So what we're looking at is more of a people-first kind of community-focused approach with this particular process, letting them understand that the services of the library are continuing. This is a temporary move. So one of the things that is going to be incumbent upon our team is to ensure that we are always using the terminology temporary location. I have, and I'm sure you have as well, have already received some questions or comments about where the library is actually going to be moving to, and are you tearing it down, and what are you doing with that space? So I've received those comments. My guess is you've probably received those as well. So again, it's a temporary move. We are going to a temporary location, and then we are going to return to the new location, as it were. So we're going to use a variety of different strategies, including our digital communications, which is our website to do regular updates, as well as our social media through our emails, our newsletter. We also have the use of Channel 19, so that's really important. We're going to be using that. We're also going to be relying on more traditional media and print, including press releases, flyers. We're also going to be doing bookmarks that we're going to be giving to the library. A lot of this stuff you're going to start seeing actually being rolled out as early as the middle of next week. So this is going to start coming out a little bit more quickly. We're also going to be looking at more wayfinding signage. And this has to do with at the mall itself or our temporary location. We've had brief conversations with the mall about allowing us to place wayfinding throughout the mall space, in the parking lot, and they are very open to that. They're also open to allowing us to use their digital signage along the freeway, and I think that's really important as well. So another really good piece to this. We are also looking at doing a specific QR code that will go to a library renovations page, right? And then that will give where all of our updates actually are. Let's see. What you're also going to be seeing, and this is going to be at the current library location, we are going to start rolling out all the information for people to know and to understand the library is going to be temporarily moving. So the signage you see for the landscape signs where you put it in the ground, we're going to see those. We're going to see window clings on our windows. We're going to put them at varying levels so people of different ages and heights and stuff can see there's definitely something going on. We have a very specific branding that we're going to be using. We're going to be coordinating that with the library team to make sure that it is all one cohesive, singular message. And I think that's really important as well. And that's kind of just generally how our marketing and communication plan is going to be going. I don't have the super specifics, but I think I've given you a really good baseline about what we're going to be doing going forward. So that's everything that I have at this point. Anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
Just thank you for all that information. I think that marketing comms plan sounds strong. My only questions around it would be, is it similar to like the playbook used for like the Grand Avenue construction
Yes.
project?
Absolutely.
The QR code and the landing page.
Correct. So the communications team is starting to use that as the model going forward for some of our larger scale projects. And this definitely falls in the larger scale project.
And then just so I'm imagining the three phases, you said library moved, library has moved, and then library returns. So in the second phase, the library has moved. Is that when the location itself will be revealed, or will the location be revealed?
Our plan is to start sharing that the library will be moving to the specific mall location. And then the library has moved. That's when we will have signage actually on the building, on the temporary fencing that's going to go up, protecting all the construction equipment so people know and understand. I think one of the important things, and I think this is really great, is that the mall itself is on a major transit hub. And I know that there's a number of people that do not have vehicles, can transit immediately to the library, but they have that direct access. So we're also going to be sharing through some of this is how to access the library through public transit as well. And I think that's very important for us to share.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And the only reason I was asking that question is because you mentioned some material might be released in the next week, but then the timeline too says April 9th for council before there's actual approval.
Right.
How do you bridge that gap between when there is no approval and you have the printed material?
That's a good question. And to your point, this phase is going to be in probably more of a sub-phased approach, right? Like, hey, there's great things that's going to be happening to the library. We're going to be moving to a temporary location. And then once we get formal approval on April 9th, we can release all of those details. And while we know exactly where we're moving right now, it is just a matter of finishing those negotiations with the mall management to be able to move into that particular space.
Thank you.
Just one request, can we get an update on this sheet?
I will get that out to you. I will reach out to the project manager and have an updated one sent to you within the next week.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Also, I'm sure you will, but when the communication plans are established and there's a landing page and more information, could you send the board a link so that we can forward it as the emails come in?
Absolutely.
Questions?
Right now, our communications team, again, has been meeting with the LS&S team as well, so they've been involved in this process. We've been communicating with them to ensure that we have one cohesive message, so we'll make sure that information gets out to Reno, and he'll be sharing that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Expanding on the transit hub that is around the mall, have there been any conversations with the North County Transit District to maybe include signage on the routes that go to the library, to the mall, to indicate, like, the mall currently has the temporary location for the library. Go check it out. For those specific routes that the mall.
That's a wonderful suggestion, and I do not believe that's incorporated into the plan at present, but I will pass that along to our communications team.
Thank you.
Robert, is this the end of your updates, or?
This is the end of
Oh, okay, good. So next question, now that we're not talking about a communication plan anymore, do we have the updated list of unfunded items available?
I do not believe we have that as of yet.
Okay,
So, but we can get that to you.
okay. When we have it, the foundation would like it circulated to them, and we just need to have continued conversations so we can see what we can accomplish with those.
I will make sure that gets to you.
Okay. Any other questions on this item?
This one might just be for Reno, but for the Friends of the Library, how up to speed are they on this? Are they comfortable? Are they committed?
I gave them a preview of today's presentations, including the diagram for their space at their meeting yesterday. So they're aware of the updated dates, including the April change, as well as the public library closure and when we anticipate to reopen. And they're well aware that they'll still be allowed into the building while staff is, so that way they can help us prepare their space and items for the move as well.
Thank you.
Are we moving the items for them with the general library move?
I believe that is
Yes.
what we are planning on doing. After having a conversation, I'm sorry, after having a conversation with our management team here at the city, it became very apparent to us following the workshop that we had is that we have a much closer and more integrated relationship with the Friends of the Library than was initially anticipated. And so we are treating the Friends of the Library at this time as if they are a program of the library. And therefore, they will be moving with us.
Okay, sounds great, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Very great updates. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We can move on to the next item, which I think is a good. Yes, update and discussion.
Can we share my current screen? All right, so today's presentation is to bring the Board of Trustees up to speed and to know what has happened since we implemented the restrictions that we had discussed a few months ago for Hoopla. So just to bring everybody up, what has happened on March 3rd, which is the first Monday of the month, we were able to implement the filters, the new restrictions based on the board's last direction. Just to refresh everybody, the main change was that we now require that Hoopla users use a Escondido Public Library card number. In the past, they were able to use what we call our online only. Those were the ones that start with PAC-REG as their library card number. Since March 3rd, only those with full library cards can use it. While we were updating updating the restrictions, we also implemented some common sense ones, such as the library cards have to be in good standing. So for us, currently, that means fees have to be underneath $100, and the cards are not expired. There weren't many that would have fallen into this anyways. Our main concern was the pack regs, but being sensible, we implemented these changes as well as we were updating what was connected. Keeping in mind the fact that we understood the board's direction, that we wouldn't want to leave out people that couldn't make it to the library, which is why they had the online-only cards, but they were either residents of Escondido or work or study here. We did create an exception, which is they can present to us either digitally or in print, a copy of their ID and then proof of eligibility. So that would be, for example, a scan of any type of photo ID from the government, and then it could be a pay stub with an Escondido address, school registration, anything. We're very open. As long as it meets one of the criteria, we'll allow it. As of right now, I have not been informed by any of the staff that anybody has taken us up on this offer, but we'll keep it going as long as it's needed. It will likely be a model for homebound services in the future for those that can't make it to the library, but do need a physical and real library card. So, what has been the impact of the changes? First, I want to let you know that I and my staff have the ability of pulling reports at any time to see who has been blocked by our budget caps. This is what they look like. I can see library card number, and I can see the date and time of when the block happens. I can run this for any time, as long as we have it. So it goes back several years. This is the main page that we're really talking about today. So here we've got the last few months and then the start of this month. So in both January and February, for the month, around 700 people were blocked in January and around 600 people were blocked in February. Average is around like 20 or so people per day being blocked due to the budget caps. More noticeably though, is what we've all discussed, which was in less than 10 minutes, the download counts for that day were being stopped. So at 12:05, 12:09, right after midnight, all the downloads for the day were done. Since March, when we took the implementation of these changes, the time to the first block has increased. It's gone from 10 minutes to 8 hours, more or less. So now instead of it being done at 12 in the morning, like at midnight, it's now done at 8 or 9 a.m. The number of users blocked per day has also been halved, more or less. All the downloads now are from users that use an Escondido library card, so it's been verified. If we do some math, it's 48, almost 50 times more the length, but it's not really saying much because, again, people are waking up and the downloads are done. I mean, more people are getting access to it, but it is still 8 a.m. It's not the full day of downloads, so it's not ideal yet. Yes?
Excuse me, just was thinking, do we have any way of getting to data of 2 years ago to show what this would look like?
What the number of users blocked was?
Yeah.
The number of users blocked before we implemented the budget caps was 0 because we had no budget caps.
Okay.
The number of downloads, which we'll look at here. So this is the last full month. We can also get data in this format. Since implementing the budget cap of around $1,300 a month, that equates to around 600 checkouts. That's what it's been for the last few months since we implemented it. 600 checkouts or downloads is substantially less than when we had unlimited downloads. And I say unlimited, there was the 5 per month download, but very few people ever reached that. It was more about, there was no budget limit. Back then, it was closer to, we between 2,000 and 3,000 downloads per month. So we are substantially less, but our budget was also proportionally much higher in that we were overspending. Instead of $1,300, we were spending close to $6,000 before we stopped that. There was runaway costs. The reality is that without increasing the budget cap, the number of downloads is probably going to be about the same. It's going to be 600. What we're essentially deciding is how many, well, first we've already decided who is getting the downloads. So we've decided that it is Escondido residents, employees or workers, and students. So we've already seen the impact of that. We are now getting those downloads to Escondido users. However, the next question will be, if we want more users to get the downloads, we have a couple more levers we can pull. And I'll skip ahead a little bit. So we can further reduce the monthly borrows. Right now we're at 3. We could go down to 2. It's hard to gauge what the impact will be, but we are estimating based on the most recent change that those downloads would probably stretch by at least 4 hours. So instead of 8 a.m., we might get into noon before the block happens. But will more significantly increase the number of unique borrowers. So that's different people getting a chance to use the service. Reducing the monthly borrows is the next best option to increasing the budget if we want to really have a big impact. Another option would be to hide collections based on borrowing cost. Speaking with Hoopla representatives, they recommended the next tier to move down to would be $2.84. That's kind of like the next big chunk of where a lot of the vendors price their audiobooks. Right now we're at $2.99. So any audiobook that costs $2.99 and under, or really any material, but I'm saying audiobooks because those are our most popular. We can move it down to $2.84, still get a bulk of the collection. We wouldn't really see many things hidden, but they did warn me that some of the $2.99 and above items, those might include popular new releases or historically popular and long books like Harry Potter. The caveat or the positive of even if we do limit those is that we buy those and those are almost always available through Libby Overdrive and the Palace Project. So essentially we're shifting the downloads from those over to Overdrive, Libby, and Palace for those popular items. So according to Hoopla and looking at the collections, if we were to lower the borrow cost, there would be little impact as far as what people would see or have access to. Really. It's more about the access because they'd still be able to get it through Libby and Palace. I'm going to go back a few pages just to go over some more things to give you some context. So like I said, amount spent is capped, which means that our downloads are functionally capped as well. What are we impacting, who's borrowing, and how many times they can borrow. For March, just so you can see the comparison. Again, it's only been 2 weeks, so the data still has time. We still need a full month to do an accurate comparison, but what I anticipate noting is we'll probably see less new patrons because, again, people can't just sign up willy-nilly using the online-only cards. But I expect the unique patrons will increase for this month. Again, unique patrons being one person with their own individual library card number. That is just a reflection of more people having a chance to use the service for that month. And I'll also mention that, as you can see here, data shows that the average cost per cert is underneath that 284. And the average circulation is underneath the 3 we currently have, so it's closer to that 2. That actually bears in the data in prior months as well. If I go back to February, Again, the average server was a little bit more than 2, but around that 2 mark. And the average cost was below that 284 mark that Ookla is recommending now. John had asked me separately if we could see the data as far as how many patrons borrow 1, 2, or 3 items. We can see here in February, a representative month. Essentially, most people either borrow 1 thing or borrow 3 things, with a middle amount doing 2. You might ask why there's some people that have 4, 5, and 6 borrows. That's because Ookla offers free borrows, they call them bonus borrows at the end of the month. And those are not tied to the limits we've imposed. So if you borrow at the end of the month from the bonus, you can get as many things as you want. And so that's why we try to encourage people to do that. So again, I mentioned this because I do think that lowering it down to 2, while it will have an impact, it will still hit the majority of users' habits, where that most people are using 1 or 3. If you're already doing 3, go down to 2 in most cases. It's not an easy ask, but it is something that we can consider. Then there's just circulation counts specifically for Ookla, so you can see what that looks like. Again, the majority of our users are checking out audiobooks, with everything else kind of being substantially less. The next most popular item, of course, is ebooks. But you'll note that, again, the downloads month over month are about the same. It's around 600. Average cost, we also have data on that. And we can see here the average cost for audiobooks. Again, it's below the 284 mark that Ookla recommends. And we can see here what is more expensive. So, for example, binge passes, which are kind of special Ookla only services. Some of them include like bundled, think of them as bundled, or kind of series. Rather than checking out an episode, you check out the series of something, and they call that binge pass. They also include other things like comic books and crossword puzzles in there. Again, we return back to the board for any questions and any potential direction. I'm also open to, if you would like to have more time to view the data before making decisions. That's also reasonable in my mind. I'm open to whatever you decide.
Reno, this is your business. You've basically been in it since you were a teenager. What would you do to increase the amount of patrons that can borrow your book?
The most impactful change right now would be to reduce the borrows from 3 to 2 and reduce the cost to 284. That would be the best chance at the moment. The question is, of course, by reducing from 3 to 2, what is the effect, right? The main effect would be for the power users. Instead of downloading 3 audiobooks, they'll be downloading 2 audiobooks. At the moment, the main way I'm looking at Ookla is as a service that's an add-on service, essentially. With our core service for ebooks and audiobooks being Libby and Palace. It's Libby, because Palace is a way of enhancing our Libby collections without paying anything by leveraging the state's purchases. And Hoopla is more, if you cannot find the audiobook you want, you go to Hoopla and you use your 1 or 2 downloads for that month to get the item you're looking for immediately. So it's kind of more of almost like an interlibrary loan, but digital, in that it's limited in kind of use, but it's very targeted in what you can get. The Honest also mentioned that, for example, none of the San Diego libraries have Hoopla because it's not a sustainable platform for them. Currently, we're the only ones, and I believe Carlsbad has Hoopla. but I think we all know that Carlsbad's library budget is substantially more than Escondido's. Granted, they also have more libraries than we do, but we have to keep that in mind as well when comparing.
So, quick question, we may have asked this in past months, but what does the block message say when a user tries to essentially take something out?
It's very literal in that it says your library's reached the number of downloads for the day, please try again at another time.
Is it customizable on our end?
We can ask to customize it, yes.
I don't know if it's ethical to ask or to customize it to direct people to other services.
We can certainly ask. I don't know whether Hoopla will be amenable to that. But we can ask that.
No, I'm just curious if we had the ability to customize the message.
I know I cannot go in and customize it. We do have to request it. And so there might be some restrictions on what that message could be, but I can certainly look into that.
If only just so it's more transparent and the library's comfortable with that messaging would be my suggestion.
I'm very pleased to see the amount of time has reduced by that much. That is amazing. I wasn't expecting that big of a difference. It's funny because today I went on Hoopla and was wondering if I can download. Granted, it was the afternoon. It was like after lunchtime, and I got the message that it wasn't available for the day. But now that I know that I can do it first thing in the morning, I will as soon as I wake up. So I'm excited to finally have the potential to download something. And then just for reference, I like the idea of reducing the amount of downloads from 2 to 3, just to make it fair for the people that are not the power users. I agree with that one. I did go to Libby when I couldn't get into Hoopla, and I wanted to check out 3 different books, and all of them were checked out, so I have them on hold, but the soonest I'm going to get one is 4 weeks from now. In your suggestion for changing the cost from $2.99 to $2.85, and you say this may eliminate very popular books such as Harry Potter. I just pulled up Libby to see when I could get Harry Potter, the first audiobook, and it's about a 16-week wait. So that's why I like the option of having Hoopla, and hopefully driving the changes that we're making down to give people like myself the option to use Hoopla, at certain times of the month. I would be happy downloading 2 borrows a month with Hoopla and using Libby, in the background when things become available. So that's my opinion, and my experience.
So the only thing I have to say about making potentially any further changes to our policies or plan is, I would advise maybe having a waiting period. And at this point, I feel like there have been many instances of different changes. And from one perspective is yes, because we're trying to appease, all of the library users to be able to access Hoopla. But I think it's also a lot for the users to be keeping up with changes almost every other month. And I do see that there are less opening jobs, but I also want to see the data maybe 3 months from now, right? Because a lot of that, right, that was the last one. Maybe Virginia didn't want to do more because she just knew she was going to move out, so she didn't even bother. So I would be interested to see what that looks like, where we just kind of kept the policy a bit consistent. Because we have almost every other meeting been putting further blocks on this. And I feel like to some extent there's only so much we can do other than just do it away.
And I'll mention, I haven't included getting rid of Hoopla as an option, but as you all know, that is always an option. I'm hesitant to take away a service that is still relatively popular, even with these limits. But I will mention that the almost $16,000 that we spend on Hoopla would also go a long way if spent in Overdrive or on print collections.
Okay, I have a question. So now that we've got into this and we've restricted it to 3 and we have our costs at $299, how quickly could, just for argument's sake, could the reduction to 2 and the lowering to 284 take place?
The reduction from 299 to 284 can happen basically overnight. I can give Ookla a call, and essentially the next day, when they refresh their system, it goes into place.
And 3 to 2?
That, almost exactly the same thing. These are changes that can happen essentially overnight.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking out loud here. We got some really interesting data in less than 2 weeks, going from putting the changes in that are in now. And we can always change back. And you can get a good point on when we're making a lot of changes quickly. But if we could try the reduction to 2 and the reduction to 284 for the balance of this month, then we have another good piece of data to look at. And well, I realize it's not a long-term thing, but we can usually, on something like this, what you see is 80% of what you're going to see in the long term. So if we make these changes, at the next meeting, we could have a pretty good look at what's going on and see if that should stay at the reduced amounts, or you could recommend something else. That would be my suggestion.
That's a good point. So use March as a test case to see what the numbers look like, or continue to hold and not make any more changes for 3 months.
I think what we would probably want to see is when we move, how that affects people's decisions on where they get their content, right? So I'm with Maribel. I think we should wait, just because like once we get into the period where the main library is closed, we may want to think about switching our budget around to actually increase the block, because that's where more people are going.
That's a great point. But we could do that, and if we have more data in the interim as to what the reduced amounts look like, we'll be able to move quickly in a direction that we think is best for everybody.
I will mention that hiding, the switch from 299 to 284 is functionally invisible to the public, whereas the 3 to 2 is much more visible to the public.
And then regarding the number of borrows, so is the number 3 or 2, regardless of what the number is it at a time? So like if I get lucky, right, I'm there at 12:01, and I can check out 3 things all at the same time, is that what that looks like? And if so, is there a feature where it's 1 item at a time, so that there's a little bit more fair across users? So I would have to return the current item I have to be able to check out my second item or third.
So unfortunately, I'm not aware that Google can limit and like 1 item at a time per day, for example, other than by instituting a monthly capital 1 per person. The way downloads work is on a first come, first served basis. So what you described is correct. If you were lucky at 12 midnight and you had your 3 downloads and you're really quick about getting all those downloaded, those would be the first 3 downloads of the day. And you would be done for the month, of course, but that's 3 less borrows for, the next 20 people.
I guess just one more question about the blocks and the users. So it's 100. Can you put that slide up one more time? It's 100 109 users blocked. Are those users potentially already taking stuff out in that month with the block?
Without getting very deep into the data, I can't say for sure, but there is a possibility that we've got people trying multiple days, so being blocked multiple times,
That
yes.
this could be a batch from like the other slide you showed with the two people, or the people are taking out two materials. They could be in the blocked user.
They-
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just the total number of users blocked. I did not break it down into the total number of unique users blocked.
Well, more data is always good. I would like us to entertain making the cuts, reductions, changes that suggested, and revisit the whole thing next meeting, and and then we'll have more information on how well going to 2 works. And then we can decide that's a bridge too far, or we can keep that up. And we'll have that data and more of it that when we make the move to the temporary location, we can make more informed decisions on what to do.
Just to clarify, the suggestion is to move from 299 to 284 only, correct? Not to also reduce from 3 to 2.
And reduce from 3 to 2.
Oh, also
Do-
do
I would
both.
suggest doing both. Well, we just ran an experiment on total users. We haven't touched the borrow cost. By all the data you showed us, we used this in borrow cost, it's probably not going to do much at all. Well, if anything, I would like to see both, but if we could just do the 3 to 2 for the rest of, until the next meeting, and see what the effect is. If it just gives us more information when we deal with the closure, not the closure, but, well, we're going to have 3 to 4 weeks of closure, and then when we're in a temporary location, we could probably pivot to different things for all our digital.
I'm having second thoughts about getting that data for the second half of the month when it won't accurately reflect what a full month would look like, because there are already borrowers this month that have possibly checked out 3. So we would only collect the data from anyone who hasn't already met that. So I would propose we test this in a full month's period.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm always anxious to fiddle, so that makes sense.
So the idea would be to do the reductions starting April 1st.
I guess whenever we think that it would be helpful to get that information out. I'm interested also, like John, to see the data as soon as possible so that we can make our decisions pretty quickly. But I'm okay with, I also understand that we have been making a lot of changes and we're going to make a lot more changes. Although I do believe this affects a small amount of patrons. So I'm okay if we want to start in April.
So if we start in April, then we'll have a week's worth of data to look at, plus a full months of March at the current. Yeah, I think that's right. That makes sense.
Okay, I think a motion would be beneficial, I think.
No,
not
because you're not
needed?
voting on it, sorry.
Okay, not voting?
You'll just consensus and direction, but you guys didn't have it on here to like vote or make a motion,
Okay.
so it's kind of, I know you guys have discussed a lot.
All right.
Why don't we vote then next time, right, on the action we want to take?
So we're saying that we're going to keep going with what we've got,
Yep,
and we'll take a look at the data next meeting and decide what to do.
and then make a vote there if we're going to keep it the same or move forward with the reduction.
Makes sense.
Yeah?
All right, so we're waiting for one more month?
Yes.
So the full month of data?
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry,
okay, go ahead.
would you be able to provide those numbers to us, or is that in the updated packet?
That'll be in the updated packet. It just, I did not have them for when I was doing the initial packets.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, statistics report.
Nothing major to report as far as statistics. I will mention that I'm still working for updated website stats. It has not been 5,000 consistently, but that is based on educated guessing, but we're making progress there. Wireless sessions also, I do not know necessarily why we increased by nearly 10,000. So we are watching that.
Yeah.
But that is, there has been no other change that I'm aware of in the reporting on that. So that might mean more people are using wireless. I'm unclear on that. Any questions as far as the statistics reports, if you'd like anything?
When we move to the temporary location, will we see wireless sessions calculated for both the main library campus and the mall?
I'm afraid at this moment, I'm unsure how the Wi-Fi reporting will be happening at the mall, as I believe City IS is still working on the internet and connectivity plan for the spaces. But
Rena, what would be helpful to us for the next meeting is to show us which of these you can keep versus
Working.
which is, yeah.
Well, mention is that we'll likely set these up to act similar to how our libraries with branches act. And again, we'll have still some activity out at the Math Center and Pioneer Room, but the main library will be down. We're still working on, say, for example, how we're going to track door counts.
Yeah.
So there might be some variability, and the data might not be exactly a one-to-one, just because the method will likely change. But we're hoping to be able to capture, for example, which of the, when you look at children's library or general collections, which is getting more foot traffic, or we're checking out the most items, etc. That was what we will track using our catalog system, treating each location as a branch, treating the storage also as a branch. That's how that's going to work on the back end.
Just one question. What happened to library visits in January?
Oh, the 40,000? This may be a result of popularity programs from January, but I actually suspect it's more of a technical issue with the gate counters. We had to replace the cabling, and so some of the month's data were split across months, and so we did our best to distribute it as what we saw based on programs. But I'm not going to say this is exactly correct from November to January, but the total number is correct.
And then what was the live offsite programs that you did to increase attendance by 400?
We must have attended a large community event or two.
Okay.
We count how many people stop by our table as attendance. And so if it's a popular event, that's usually what's reflected.
Okay, thank you, Rena. We'll move on to the director's report.
Were there any questions about the strategic plan updates? There were no major updates from our part. I'll mention that due to the planning for the move, we did not plan for our typical job fair, which would have happened around this time of the year. We had anticipated perhaps having moved or being at So I am in talks with our staff to see what we can do to have a job fair, if not in a temporary location, up here at Mathis or somewhere else. Because we've had good response to that, both from the vendors and from the community. But I don't have any updates for that, whether that'll be 5 or when this year. Any other questions regarding the strategic goals?
Just one on the phone charging kiosks, how were those received?
We're still monitoring it. I have staff watch them, and I also, whenever I'm walking, take a look. They're still not being used as much as I would like, but I think I have seen at least a phone or two in there every other time I stop by, and that's a good use. If anybody's using it, I'm happy.
Yeah, we can move on to the directions.
All right.
Now, thank you.
I'll keep it brief because we're close to the end of the day. Again, our adult services, I didn't have anything from my side since most of my updates have been already covered and when we've been talking about the booth, that is where most of my attention has been going. Adult services, we have a wonderful number of events around Black History Month in February. Hopefully some of you attended or knew somebody that attended. Also mention, I was very happy to see in our Pioneer Room updates that they've been working with homeschool families to have partner and build that love of history starting from a young age. We also have some partnerships and new donations coming into the Pioneer Room. So we're very excited with what I'm seeing there. And last but not least, I did want to bring to your attention our Winter Reading Challenge statistics. Winter Reading Challenge did run through February, so it's mid-January through mid-February. We had here the breakdown by age of who participated. So we do different age groups, babies, kids, tweens, teens, and adults. And you can see there the breakdown, and then at certain levels you were all receiving prizes. And of course, we had a number of African American History, Black History Month related events for children and teens throughout the month. Any questions?
It's always great to see the pictures and the highlights. That's something that I know that you added, and just a nice touch.
That's it for my work.
Thank you, Rena. Sounds great. We'll move on to the trustee library news report. Carolyn, would you like to start?
Sure. So I was in the library during the drum event, and I didn't know what was going on, but it sounded like everyone was having a great time. I was downstairs, like looking at books, and they were all upstairs, and it sounded like a great party. And then I went to the library yesterday to check out some books on raising chickens, because that might be in my future. And I was happy to find a bunch of books on homesteading and chickens and, growing stuff in your backyard. So it's great.
I don't have much except Monday, Thursdays. I attend classes at the Madison.
I'm human resources for a biotech company, and I was at a large biotech conference like 2 months ago. Well attended, a lot of people, and I was at a very large table with like 30 people sitting at it. And out of nowhere, one of the other conference attendees started raving about an audiobook that he was listening to on Libby. It was called the Midnight Library. I don't know. Yes.
Oh.
See?
That's great, girl.
It's on hold.
Oh, okay.
But he was raving about Libby, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna give Libby another shot. And then everyone was like listening, and they're like, wait, what is this book? What is Libby? And so we got everyone got their phones out, everyone downloaded Libby, signed up for a library card, and then it, you know, got me interested to give Libby another shot, and I have the book on hold now, so it was just so funny because I was like, am I on camera? Like, is somebody, did we send this guy here? So anyway, it was really funny, and it's funny because about 30 people started using Libby that day. It's pretty awesome.
Funny that you mentioned Libby. That's all I use for audiobooks. I will say that their search function sometimes just totally frustrates me, but other than that, it works great.
I downloaded Playplace. I have yet to continue any further than that. But I'm part of several different legal groups, and I've seen articles about the library renovation popping up. And so far, it looks like a lot of the response is positive regarding. It looks like a lot of communities excited to have it all and implementation near the lake area. So there is that. Check out some funny children's books. That is in the near future.
Want to remind everyone our next meeting in April 10th is at 6 p.m. And thank you everyone